So it's a cookie. General. Huh? Oh, oh! You've been standing there? I must have fallen asleep for months. Oh, I guess we better get on with the countdown. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my top 100 games, my favorite games for 2014. I realize we're almost near the end of 2015, so we're going to have to try to get through these just as soon as we possibly can. We're doing today numbers 40 through 31, so we've got 10 games to get through. Let's start with number 40. Number 40 is an oldie but a goodie, and chances are you've seen this one if you've been playing games, but if you haven't, we'll go back over this. Settlers Catan, or now just Catan is the way that Mayfair would like to have you remember what this game is all about. It's a game, as it says here, of settlement and discovery. You have a hex grid of different tiles, each with making its own different resources. You use those resources to settle more places on the board, help you bring in more resources. Each turn you roll dice. The hexes are numbered based on the probability table for those two dice. So again, so much has been written about this. Even last year, it was all up in a hubbub about the Packers playing Settlers Catan as a pastime. If you haven't played it, it's definitely worth it. It's about time that you have played it. Folks like who've been used to this game, as this game's now gotten to be 20 years old now, start to see some flaws where, okay, you can go after somebody and cut them off the longest road, or basically it's a game about trading, but if you want to win the game, you shouldn't really trade. You can argue or quibble as you want to. It still is a game that, for a lot of people, when they think of modern gaming, they think Catan. And that's why it belongs on just about everybody's list, whether it be somewhere in the middle where I have it or down at the bottom. It's a base entry-level game. Settlers of Catan, or now just Catan, number 40. Number 39 is a dice game, but I don't think they'd want you to think of it as a dice game. This is Tois. This is, if it looks familiar, this is the grandfather of Tournai. So this is the full game here. And the thing with this game is you have dice that represent workers in three different classes, one being the priesthood, one being the military, and one being merchants. You go, and the thing is, they all have different things that you can do with those pips. You can turn pips into getting money. You can turn pips into fighting off one of the invasions that are coming on. You can use the pips to do things in the monastery. And so, again, it's like its card game version, but instead you have these dice and you're trying to make the best use of them. They have these secret characters, so you might be trying to go and get the most money or getting the most military, but at the same time you don't want to be too blatant about it, because everybody will score for that condition at the end of the game. So if they can guess, if they can figure out they're going for this, then they can do the same thing and try to mitigate your potential secret advantage if you become too obvious with your plays. It's a steep learning curve, because the hardest part of the game is figuring out what dice you should actually go for, or making the best use of the priesthood things, because they can change so much during the game. And it's really a game that if you have any amount of money, if you have money in your pocket, you can literally do anything, because you can just buy other people's dice, and so you can really be kind of mean of, you thought you were going to do that? No, I've got the money, now I'm going to do that. Again, it is definitely a brilliant game that has dice, but it would not be so luck-filled as to make you think it's a dice game. This is Tois, my number 39. Number 38 is a one of two Feld titles. This is Strasbourg. Strasbourg is, at one point is just sort of a control of different guilds, and so it has some area control, it has some set collection going on. But the biggest and unique thing about this game is you have a deck of cards that represent your influence points. You are allowed to draw from this deck of influence points as many cards as you wish from one round to the next. The problem is that deck is fixed. You don't get to recycle them during the game. So if you draw too many at the front, you won't have any points for the end of the game. So you have to very carefully manage how you go through that deck. And so, two, you can look and draw these cards, and you know that everyone has the same distribution of points. So some cards are worth more points, some cards are worth fewer. And so after you've drawn 3, 4, 5 cards, and you look at your hand, you go, man, I don't have a lot of points. You have to look at the board and see what's available to be claimed that turn, because they have a set track of, okay, we're going to go and get seats in this guild or that guild. And so you have to decide whether or not you're going for the guilds that are available or not. And so sometimes you might want to go, okay, well, look, I will take fewer points this time, knowing that later on during the game, those are the places that you want to go and be able to score the most points. And so that's really a mechanic that I haven't seen really anyplace else, and this game really exploits it to its fullest. It's fun. It's Strasbourg, my number 38. Number 37 is a game that I have played a lot late at night in dining establishments and other places when I was younger. This is Wizard. This is a trick-taking game. Now, more recently, you might hear people talk about Diamonds as really the most recent trick-taking game of note. Well, this came much before Diamonds, and honestly, I kind of prefer it versus Diamonds. At its outset, you don't really know what's so big about it. It's just a standard deck of cards with 4 wizard cards and 4 jester cards. And the thing is, each round you get dealt out a number of cards, and the number of cards go up 1 by each round. And just simply each round you try to guess exactly how many tricks you're going to take, whether it be from 0 to the whole set of cards. And then you play a normal trick-taking game. The only differences are that the jesters in the deck automatically lose the trick for you, and the wizards in the deck automatically win it. And then whoever's the first one to play their wizard is the one who wins that trick. So that's the whole thing. If you don't get exactly your bid, then you lose points. You don't score points. And so that's the biggest thing, is you want to get exactly yours. This game, sometimes if somebody gets out to a big lead, it's really not a very easy way for you to catch up, because the amount of points you score is directly related to the number of tricks you bid. So there's no bonuses in the game for going blind nil or anything else like that. So you can certainly add your own variants to try to enable somebody to catch up. But if somebody does get out to a big lead, it can be difficult to try to catch up. But it's always been a fun time. And I still hold in my heart as one of the best trick-taking games you can play. This is Wizard, my number 37. Number 36 is the other Feld game that I was alluding to. This is Rialto. This is a tasty minstrel game. It goes on sale quite a bit, and I don't know why. It has area control in it. It has hands of cards, and so you're using these influence points to go and place your characters on the board, and you're trying to control these different areas for different amounts of points. The bigger thing is that then you get these powers that you can also get, because there's these different roles. So sometimes you're bidding to place tokens in your area. Sometimes you're bidding to receive money, which then can help power your buildings or help you get buildings. And then you have these buildings out there, and then sometimes those buildings give you points. Sometimes they help you manipulate the board. It's definitely, and it has one of the influence tracks where you're always having to sometimes spend some of your cards to advance your influence so that you can keep going first, because going first is always a good thing in this game. It plays pretty quickly, and yeah, it's got some hand control in there as well. It's a cornucopia of things. It's not necessarily a point salad, which Feld always gets into criticism for his games. And so it's always it's always one that you will not have a bad time with this one. This is Rialto, my number 36. Number 35 is, unlike that game, is a point salad game, but it's one that it's equal opportunity cheese for all players. This is Seasons. It's a game that's set sort of in a magical realm, and so at the start of the game, you get cards that then there's different ways that you can play. You can play where you draft the cards. You can play where you get the cards just face up. You might get more and discard down. It's however you want to. But you have 9 cards, and you get to stack your deck. You will get 3 cards to start the game with, and then you'll have 3 more cards that'll come to you in the middle part of the game, and then 3 more cards that come to you at the end of the game. Your job is to figure out how you're going to play those cards over the course of the entire game for the most effect. The thing is, you have to play all the cards in your deck, and all the cards in the deck cost magical energy tokens that you have to acquire, and so you get those over the course of the game. So you can try to plan out from the beginning, okay, well, I know I'm going to have a whole bunch of green energy coming up near the end, so you can try to stockpile that as best as you can during the course of the game. Also, though, these cards, they'll provide you abilities. Some of these abilities provide you more points at the end. Some of them provide you advantage that as you do certain actions or take certain cards or do things, then you get more points. And so there's points all over the place because you can turn your unused magic into points based on what season it is. So, for example, if it's winter, then green energy is rarer, so you get more points for selling them when it's winter because there's a clock in the game and a calendar. And so, again, different seasons for when you're turning in your energy and when you're using them. Again, it's got a lot of different ways, a lot of replayability. Again, you're going to score a lot of points, but everybody gets to score a lot of points, and that's why I say it's equal opportunity cheese, and it ends up being a fun time if you let it happen. There's also, I didn't even mention, there's dice drafting in there, so each round you're picking a die that helps give you something, so you're balancing that because the dice give you the permission. You can only put so many cards into play unless you're taking the stars off of those dice. So there's even that part of it as well. It can get a little slow with 4 players. That's the only thing, and it can get to because you want to get every last point. It can get a little analysis paralysis in it, but if you just keep moving, it's a fun time. It's Seasons, my number 35. Number 34 is a dice. It's got dice in it, but it's more of bidding and trying to think along with your opponents. This is Kingsburg. Kingsburg, there's a grid of advisors, royal advisors. You roll 3 dice. You can split those dice however you wish, but you get the players take turns placing dice on this grid of advisors to get resources or get abilities or victory points, and that's the game. The big thing is, though, when you roll your dice, it's not necessarily it doesn't hurt so much to roll high, but you want a varied amount of dice on your grid, because if you roll all the same number, the number of different combinations that you can pick are reduced. So starting with the person who rolled the lowest, they get to place their dice out there, and so maybe if they can figure out, okay, well, maybe I can place 1 die over the 6. That's the one that gets blocked off a lot. Well, if you only have things that add up to 6, well, now that cuts off your possibilities, or just different ways. Sometimes it might be if you can place your 2 dice, well, then somebody else can't place all 3 of their dice on another thing. And so as you go along, the fewer dice that you have, the fewer options that you have, and you may not be able to use all your dice. And then again, too, there's other ways to get bonus dice. There's other ways to modify the pips that your dice have in order for you to get as much as you can over the course of the whole game. And then they have a building grid system in there, so you're using your resources to get you mitigating powers or other things that help you score bonus points in the end of the game. So it's a well done system. Again, some people argue about the dice, but again, I think the game, if you play it the right way, mitigates all the issues that you might have with the dice. It's definitely a fun time It's Kingsburg, my number 34. Number 33 is a game that's sort of hid beneath the covers when it was released. This is Spirium. Spirium is made by William Attila. Everybody remembers him for Kalis, and that's fine and great. And so everyone thought that this game would be along the grand scale of Kalis. Well, it's not. It's a very unique game where you're bidding meeples, you're putting them between cards, and it's sort of a chicken game of when you start pulling off those meeples, you can't put any more out, but then that means you're going to be the first one to get what you want. However, if you wait too long, everybody has put out, and the more players that you have, everybody's put out their meeples on the board, so when you go first, the thing that you want might cost a boatload more of money. And there's not that much money to be had in the game. It's a very tight economy. So the thing is, the more players that you had, you can get more money because then you can pull your guy off if you go first, let's say, and go, you know what, I don't want this thing that I was trying to get. I'll take money instead. And you get money based on all the other meeples that are around the thing that you're trying to take. So it's definitely this sort of weird balancing act between, okay, I want to put my meeples out there to make things more expensive, but then you want to pull them back maybe to get that money, or maybe to get the thing that's going to score you a whole boatload of points, and it's worth spending that money because you're keeping the other players from getting it. So it's that sort of reverse auction mechanic we were talking about with Spikerstock and some other games. But then it has just some different things. And of course, there's a Spirium, so you're trying to build these factories to help get you better rates of return on using your Spirium, because it's this super not magical, but new power source that has been found, mineral type thing. Again, it's steampunky. It's got just a lot of things going for it. I think it's just because it's in a small box, people kind of overlook it, and it's been on sale a ton. Definitely worth a try if you haven't tried it yet. This is Spirium, my number 33. Number 32 is a game that just came out when I made this list. It's been around. You possibly played the app. This is Splendor. Splendor is a game of getting jewels, turning them into resource bonus cards, which then provide jewels of their own, which then you can go and get more jewels to buy higher bonus cards, which are worth victory points, and then once you get enough victory points, you win the game. Now, while that doesn't sound like it's the recipe for just a fantastic game, the biggest thing about this is it's very approachable, and it's very much a tactical game that you can get without necessarily having to have played a lot of tactical games. Flavor is pretty not so flavorful. Again, you're just amassing chips to amass cards to amass victory points. Hooray. But it does this very well, and sometimes having a game in a smaller box is okay. And this game also comes with very satisfying feeling poker chips, which is always a good time, even if you get lost or you don't care so much about for the puzzling aspect of it. The app that they just put out for this in the last few months is very good if you don't want to get a physical copy, if you're anti-physical copies. Try the app. Either way, a game you should try. Splendor, my number 32. And lastly, as my games pile up here in front of you, number 31, El Grande. El Grande is probably, it is the definitive area control game. It's sort of, when people think area control, they think El Grande. And, it's a game where you've got these cards that you can use, and sort of the lesser powerful cards allow you to put more guys on the board. The more powerful cards let you put fewer guys on the board, and they have things where you move guys around, and you get points based on whether you placed first or second in these different regions, and you have this king that keeps regions from being messed with, and then everybody also always remembers the big tower that you can check some of your little cubes into, and then at the end of the game you break open the tower and you find out, green player actually had the most cubes in there. So you have this sort of memorying you put in 2 cubes, and you put in 1, and I put in 3, but then you did, So again, it's a classic area control game that has kind of stood the test of time and sort of is measured up as other area control wannabe games as how they've made different changes from what El Grande did. And they just most recently did a much bigger box than this one because they had a lot of little one-off expansions that were hard to get all in one place. I just have this one, and it's plenty fine. But again, it's back in print, which is hooray! One of the great things, because this thing was out of print for quite a while, for several years, and people heard about this game and they're like, well, why don't I have it? Why can't I play it? Well, that's just what happens sometimes in the game business. But anyway, give it a try. El Grande, my number 31. Well, that's another 10 that we've sort of sped on through and have stacked up here. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again for watching. God bless you, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.